What's up, YouTube? And today we're going to finish stripping down the rest of the frame. There's not much left on it, more just the sway bar, steering, brakes, and fuel lines. But you'll find there are still some other things here and there. When taking it apart, any spot where you have a bolt that's threaded into the frame, make sure you save those threads by putting those bolts back in. If you don't sandblast that little spot, you can always just clean it up yourself, but you're not going to want to have to try rethreading things down the road. So this has definitely been threaded, so save your threads. Put your bolts back in, because we are going to want to reuse those spots. Other than that, guys, oh yeah, and we had to take this out, which I think these are just through bolts. Yeah, they are. So I think this is going to be a pretty quick episode for you guys. Then it's just a matter of getting it down to build and getting it under sandblast. And then that's when the work begins. That's when we have to actually start welding and getting some gussets in this thing to take some serious power. Alright guys, let's get to work. So this is going to end up being quite the transformation from the OEM. However, if you're still trying to make it look like it's as original or OEM style as possible, you're going to want to save these brake lines because it's going to be a lot easier to make new ones if we have a template. So we're going to go ahead and be very gentle taking this stuff apart. I'm going to try keeping it in one piece. I'll either hang it over on the ceiling over there or on that piece of plywood so it doesn't get damaged. As I said, though, going down through this way, the fuel lines and the brake lines and the emergency brakes, or everything is going to change. I want to make things very, very, very stout back here, so going inside the channels is just not going to happen. We could do that in theory, but you will never have access to it. And he just, someone down the road may end up getting this car and, if something ever happens, you don't want it coming back on you as something you skimped on or didn't think about. So kind of plan ahead while doing these things. And as far as I can tell, these are just either pressed in. I think they're just pressed in. We're going to either want to protect these with some really, really good duct tape, something like Gorilla Tape, which is what I'll probably do, or you're going to want to go ahead and take these out. I don't really want to fight with them. They're in there just fine where they are. So we're going to use Gorilla Tape, probably 2 or 3 layers of it, just so it doesn't get sandblasted off. And of course, we still need to get these mounts off and the steering. So let's keep digging at this. This right here is actually a bracket that you use to hold your brake lines onto the actual frame. So it's very important that we do not lose these. We can make new ones if it needs be, but the steel is still pretty good on it. I don't think we'll have an issue just cleaning them up ourselves. But we do want to take them off the body so we get a nice clean slate behind it. So we'll go ahead and sandblast these ourselves. The same can be said about these engine mounts. There's absolutely nothing wrong with them, so there's no reason to have to go get replacements. However, we do once again want to have good steel behind it. So we're going to pop these off, and we'll keep that with this and a few other brackets that I've taken off the frame so that we can sandblast them and then paint them and then reinstall them on a nice clean, freshly painted frame. So we'll go ahead and take those off, leaving us just to cover up these threads on both sides of the actual frame and take the steering and sway bar off. Oh, and there's still one more body mount that needs to come off. But other than that, we will have a nice stripped frame ready for sandblast. All right, guys, we're in the home stretch, which means we just have those 3 bolts holding the steering box on. We just have a few more bolts holding the rest of the rack on, and a few bolts holding the sway bar. We do, however, still have to remove the transmission support, which is only held on by 4 bolts. So this is going to go by pretty quickly. Now, I did reach out to Bill this past week, and he's very excited about getting this thing down there, probably after the New Year's, which is literally this week. So I'm hoping I can get it down there either at the end of this week, beginning next week. But he did say he's more than okay with us filming, as long as we're not, you know, in a situation where we're going to get hurt or in their way. So very, very excited about getting you guys that content of this being sandblasted, brought down to raw steel. Now, I am going to end up painting it myself. I'll probably end up bringing it down to our shop down in the local city, just so that I can get some paint on this and it's not going upstairs. So other than that, guys, we're in really good shape. You know, the big investment we're going to need is a welder. I don't have a welder that is, I should say I don't have a welder that I'm confident enough in welding in supports for the actual main structure of this vehicle. So we are going to have to look into getting a welder, but not something I can't handle. I've welded in the past, and I'm very good at MIG welding, and that's what we're going to use for this. For exhaust and stuff like that, something I do need a little bit more practice in would be TIG, but we're not quite to making the exhaust yet, so we just need to get ourselves a really good MIG welder. Anything else is pretty much just going to be taken care of down the road. Remember, 2, 3, depending on if they're going to be doing a heavy-duty sandblast, go ahead, go nuts. Put 4 layers of like Gorilla. I do recommend Gorilla tape for this. But other than that, all the threads have been protected. And what ends up happening is if we don't end up using threads down the road, fine. There's going to be a couple spots so you could definitely seeing how this body was used on so many different cars, or I should say this frame was used on so many different cars. There was a lot of extra holes everywhere for the different types of options that the different vehicles had. So a lot of that stuff, just so it looks better, we're going to go ahead, plug weld, grind flat, and then paint over it. All right, I don't know how well these are going to come off, so I'm going to go ahead and do these pretty much right in front of you guys, mostly so I can start asking you a few questions. Some of you guys I know are very, very knowledgeable with these vehicles. If you are at all aware of an upgraded, more of a rack and pinion setup than like a steering box for this setup, or am I gonna make my own? So if you guys could tell me, that'd be wonderful, because ultimately I don't really mind making my own, but we have so much we're going to be kind of fabricating together that it's just going to be one more thing, if you know what I mean. So I'll be honest, switching over to these wide base jack stands was a very good idea, because they don't really move much at all while I'm twisting on these things, where the other ones were really, I was worried that the whole thing was going to tip right over. So far so good on these. Even with banging on it, it barely moves. So yeah, there we go. Wasn't too bad. So yeah, comment in the section down below if you know of a way more modern system, or I'm going to end up making one out of probably my Mark IV steering column or steering rack, because I really don't like this setup, and I don't want to say it's bad. I've just not something I'm used to, and I don't know if it really would be able to produce the same kind of performance as like a rack and pinion. So, all right, that's all I have on that. We'll get this the rest of the way out, and yeah, I can't believe that I was able to get as much done tonight as I have been able to get done. So I'm gonna stop talking now. Thank you for sticking around on this episode. I know it was a lot more of a tedious episode than normal, but come on. There we go. But we did get the frame stripped, and that's very important to have this frame move forward so that we can get it sandblasted. And it's a big integral part of the project. And something I did just find out. One, these are totally shot. But two, so the transmission was mounted directly to this structure, obviously. But I remember when I first pulled it off, I was like, wow, it's solid mounted. What they ended up doing was they have rubber mounts that mount to the frame, and that's all that holds on to this entire transmission mount. Now, the frame's fine, but these mounts are total junk. Total junk. So, doesn't matter. We're not reusing them anyways. But, thought that was a pretty neat thing to kind of point out, that they actually used this as the rubber isolation from the vibration of the engine and transmission. So, something neat. Well, anyways, guys, I hope you enjoyed this episode. If you're looking to help the channel grow, especially help build this car, just remember, hit that like button and go ahead and subscribe. That does phenomenal things for the channel. I won't pretend to understand how it all works, but somehow or another it does. So, you guys have yourselves a wonderful night, and if I don't see you, have yourselves a wonderful new year. Take care.